Hi all, Darren Hansborough from DA Components. This week's video is all about troubleshooting in your van. We've all experienced problems with controllers, pumps, pressure switches, fuse holders, fuses, and things not working after 3 months down the line. You get a brand new system fitted or even a DIY system. It works fine for the first 3 months. Then you start incurring problems. 9 times out of 10, if you've got a quality controller from the top suppliers, I do believe the controller will be fine. However, you can still get DIY controllers, but what we're going to talk about is how to test that controller, see if it's working to its maximum. And then we're going to move over to the pump if you have a problem with the pump as well. And then we'll troubleshoot the pump. So the tools that I really do believe in going forward, helping you to be more efficient on the wiring side of things, is basic a 12-volt multimeter like so. It looks a bit complicated, but it's not. It's not. So I'm just going to switch everything on, and then we'll do a scenario where everything stops, and then we'll test the controller first to see if it's working properly. So I'm just going to switch the controller on. I'm just going to turn the flow on the controller. The pump's actually working, and then you're working away, then something happens and the pump stops. Controller's lit up, but the pump doesn't work. Okay, so the first thing I would do is get my multimeter, switch it to the lowest setting, which is on this one you want it V for the voltage, and you want it at the lowest setting, and at this one is number 20. Most multimeters are all the same, but you want it at the lowest value of, it could be 10, it could be 12, it could be 15, but you just want to set it at number 20 on the multimeter. Then you've got two, a red and a black. So all I'm going to do is just unplug the pump connections to the controller, which is the brown cable. 9 times out of 10, it's bullet connectors like so. And I'm just going to unclip the negative. So now the pump is actually disconnected from your system. So now we're going to test a voltage output from the two cables we just taken off from the pump, which is the brown and blue. So the brown on most controllers is the positive. So what you need to do is get the red on the multimeter, stick it inside the actual female connector of the controller. Then you get the black, which is the negative of the controller. And the same again, just stick it inside. So now we've got two probes, one in the positive and one in the negative. I'm going to switch the controller on. Controller comes on. In this multimeter, I'm actually going to turn the flow up as if I'm turning the pump on. And what you should see is an output voltage on your display of your multimeter. So I'm just going to turn the controller on. And as you can see, on the multimeter, we have voltage output. I'll just turn it right the way up as if I'm doing a new clean, and then we get 11 volts. I'm just going to slow this down, turn it down as if I'm turning it back down to 50 on the display, and we get a different voltage, which is a prime example that this controller is working normally. I'm just going to switch this off, take the probes back out, turn the multimeter off. So then I'm going to put the cables back on the controller, turn the controller off. The black cable to the blue of the controller, which is your negative, and then your brown to the red of the pump. Just out of interest, because I've taken the bullet connectors off there, 9 times out of 10 with a vibration in your van, moisture in your van, the controller will obviously come on, but the pump might even kick in, which it did. Just turn it down. Because 9 times out of 10, I do believe it could be just dodgy connections all getting a bit rusty around the edges. And it's very good practice to check your cable, because if you pull that off there and the cable came out, then you know you've got a dodgy connection on there. I do have a video on crimping connectors and bullet connectors, so I'll put that in the link after this video. So I'm just going to push these back on. So for argument's sake, and the pump still doesn't come on, so then I'm going to pay my attention to the pump pressure switch. Now, the best thing to do for this is just to pull each spade connector off the bottom of the pump. So then you've got 2 spade connectors. I don't advise you to cut these off, because I want you to put them back on the pump for this next test that I'm going to do. Now, the best test that I've always came across is if you've got a spare bit of cable and you take the plastic end off each end and stick a bit of cable in there to make that loop, you can do that. Just switch the controller off. Or the good rule of thumb, believe it or not, is a good old paper clip. I've opened it up, and what I'm going to do is just going to slide it inside one of the spade connectors and just make the loop and slide the other one into the other spade connector. Bear with. So then I've made that loop into there, which makes that connection. So then I'm going to switch the controller on. I'm going to set the flow. And if the pump comes on now, which it does, turn it down. If the pump comes on now, that tells me that the pressure switch inside your pump has failed. Now, to test that, it doesn't matter if you forgot to take these spade connectors off the pressure switch. It doesn't matter which way around it goes. So I'll just slide them back on to the connection. And then you can turn it, obviously this is going to work because this is for demonstration. And if you turn the controller on, turn the pump on, if the pump doesn't come on, now you're connected to the pressure switch, that will tell you that the pressure switch has failed. That's my top tips on using a multimeter to test the controller, to see if the controller output is working, and then the pump. There's another way you could do this as well, but you'll need some spare cable. What you could do, you can bypass the controller completely. Turn the controller off. Controller is completely out of the equation. You would need your battery terminals. And we are here, we have the positive, which is the red, would go to the red positive of your pump. Just push them in together. And you need the negative of the battery to the negative of your pump. Now, as soon as you push this together, the pump should come straight on. So just be aware of that. The pump came straight on. That tells me that the pump is working okay. That's another test. If the pump doesn't come on, you could do that scenario with the paper clip. If the pump comes on, it tells you that the pressure switch has actually failed. And last but not least is I'm very good at telling people about bullet connectors. It's very important to maintain your van wiring connections, and it's just like the good rule of thumb of maintaining your pole. We can all do trad work, we can all change our rubbers in the squeegees to get a better performance, but with wire connectors, I think this is one of the most top ones in my opinion. And then I do go on about bullet connectors, probably one of the best ones, but I will link a video in the description with a crimping tool for that. But there's another little connection which I think is really vital. They're called a Wago connector. It's got 2 little tabs. You can lift them up, and as it snaps down, it locks into position. And what this does, so if you don't have any bullet connectors, you can get a piece of cable like so, and you can actually push it inside the connection, push down the tab, and that holds it in. Then you get the other side of the connection that you want to make. Bear in mind, it's just for videos, it should be red or the same. And then slide it in to the other side, push the tab down. That's made a nice solid connection there. And you can have a look at the back. There's got a little silver bar across, and it's making the connection. And also it's given a bit of a waterproof protection. So I think going forward, these ones are really good handy ones. I can also link these in the video as well. Now, same scenario you can do there is, if you do have a dodgy connection on this one, you can just lift them up and just pull them out, which is very good for quick release connections, which I do like. So that's my top tip in troubleshooting a controller, a pump, a pressure switch, and also just a little top tip how to use the basic voltage setting on a multimeter to test your equipment. Another top tip I can give, location of pumps. I always recommend guys to fit them as low as possible. This will gravity will help the pump perform to its maximum ability. For argument's sake, if you have them dead high in your van, which I have seen, and it can work to a degree, once you start getting airlocks, persistent getting airlocks, I always recommend lowering the pump down, so the gravity of the tank will get to the pump, and then the pump will take the pressure away from there, and then the pump will work to its maximum ability. With the airlock situation as well, after the pump, if you do suffer from airlocks, or you could fit one anyway, it'll always help perform the pump, is a non-return valve after the pump with the arrow going towards your reel. Basically, it's like a flap. The water's going that way, and then once the water comes back the other way, there's a flap here, and then it'll just literally hold the water in your pump, and that should reduce airlocks. That's a top tip on that. As we go about controllers, now the controllers are 65 IP65 rated. They are rated from dust and water dripping. It's not 100% waterproof. I do see a lot of systems fitted where you've got your tank and you've got your filler cap here, the controller's being mounted here, and you're filling your van up with your water for the next day or whatever you want to do, and you're probably the best person of keeping everything away from connections and stuff and water, but water always sits on top of controllers like so. It'll be fine for the first 3 months or maybe 6 months, and then there's water just sitting here. There is a rubber seal on these controllers, like I say, but after a process of time, water will get behind here and it will start getting in, so I just want to be advised about that. Here's a couple of top tips you could do. You could put a black electrician's tape around here for added protection if you still want to mount it on things like that, or you can actually mount it around the side, or just avoid the filler cap, just to help the controller do its job. So that's my top tips on locations, controllers and pumps, and then hopefully going forward it should be bulletproof. So if you like the video, please give us a like, please give us a thumbs up, hit the bell button, and thank you very much. Darren from DA Components.